Joe, if you'd call the roll call.
Kevin Tansky. Here. Katie Gallagher.
Here.
Tony DeMarco.
Here.
Ron Van Kirk.
Here.
Kathy Pucci.
Here.
Mary Belbeer.
Here.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We first have to approve the minutes from December 9th, 2013. May I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
To approve, Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Katie Gallagher.
Yes.
Tony DeMarco.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Abstain.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Belbeer.
Abstain.
Now we will proceed with our council meeting. And Happy New Year, everybody. I'd first like to thank my colleagues for voting me in as council president. I'd like to say a few more things, but we have an outside counsel here tonight for executive session regarding the EPA agreement for the sanitary landfill, as well as Mr. Clausen, our law director, has to discuss the collective bargaining agreement for the Northern Ohio Patrolman Benevolence Association. So after the public session, council will have to break for executive session briefly to discuss these matters. At this time, we will have a public session. If anyone in the audience has anything to say for the good and welfare of the city of Brooklyn, please step forward, state your name and address, including your city, and you will be recognized. Please keep your comments to 5 minutes or less.
Tom Adamski, 9625 Melody Lane. Mayor Belbeer, just before I came here on the news, Cleveland announced that they are installing 24 traffic cameras, and that brings a total of 54 cameras in the city of Cleveland. And as everyone knows, Lindale also has traffic cameras. As I see construction going on by Bidoff, they are rapidly making progress. Undoubtedly by summer, they will be in the area of Rich Park Square, which means significantly increased traffic on Idlewood. I reiterate my somewhat campaign about the traffic problems that I have said in the past. I've asked either for a stop sign or for a mobile camera. If council still feels that a stop sign is not the answer, then evidently to me the answer is a mobile camera, which will be legal. Even though legislation is pending, still other cities are using this as an instrument. And there's always the argument by being either a cash cow or for safety. But I can't say anything more. I'm still disappointed about the residents that live in Idlewood. I would expect that if they were really concerned about this, that more would be here discussing the matter. I hope that council makes a decision this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adamski. Does anyone else have anything for the good and welfare of the city of Brooklyn?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Victor Ardito, 7439 Outlook Avenue, Brooklyn. I'd like to comment on the snow removal. Overall, the city does fantastic. I thought they were going to cut back on salting the side streets, which it seems they do at times. But this last batch, I mean, the side streets were fantastic, which to me wasn't totally needed. But the sidewalk plows never came down any of the side streets. And walking the dog was like, trudging through the snow on some of the streets. Where I live, myself, I do several sidewalks, and most of the other people do, but go a street over or so, and hardly anything's done. Like I say, I don't know if the policy changed, but I thought it was that they weren't salting everything. I'm fine with the main streets at grade and get the intersections. And the other thing, it's number 2. People have mentioned again, 25-mile-an-hour zones. Parma just churned, recently Broadview into it. I mean, you go into Parma, and it's a speed trap to me and to many people I've talked to. A school zone's no problem. I mean, the parkway's 30 miles an hour, but to do 25 miles an hour on a main street, to me, most people, I think it might be boring, and to me, some ways, a little more dangerous because, people are they're just trying to go faster, and yeah, it's against the law, but 25 miles an hour, excuse me, it's a little boring. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything for the good and welfare of the city of Brooklyn? Okay, as stated before, council needs to go into executive session briefly, and when we return, we will go through the remaining agenda. So at this time, I need a motion to adjourn to executive session for matters relating to collective bargaining and potential litigation.
Should we handle those individually or in one motion?
I don't think it necessarily matters.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
And just to stipulate, it would be with the mayor, the law director, and our outside counsel, and our finance director. Second.
To adjourn for executive session, Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Katie Gallagher.
Yes.
Tony DeMarco.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Belbeer.
Yes.
I go, oh no, something's wrong.
Can you get in?
I'm good, thank you.
I need a motion to reconvene.
Move to reconvene.
Second.
To reconvene, Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Katie Gallagher.
Yes.
Tony DeMarco.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Belbeer.
Yes.
Thank you for your patience. I'm sorry again. We had outside counsel coming in from Columbus, and so we just didn't want to spend the money to have them sit here waiting. Again, I'd like to thank my colleagues for voting me as council president. And I'd like to say I have some big shoes to fill after Mrs. Pucci. She did a terrific job keeping council updated on issues going on in the city. She and Mary Jo have graciously helped me during this transition with their knowledge and experience. I'd like to welcome new council member Mary Belbeer. I've known Mary for years, but over the last few weeks I've gotten to know her a little better. She is a very kind-hearted and generous individual who is constantly thinking of others, so I look forward to working with you, Mary.
Thank you.
As council president this year, my primary goal is working on relationships. Council's relationships with each other, council's relationship with the mayor and his administration, and council's relationship with the school. Each one of my colleagues has a tremendous wealth of knowledge and ideas to make Brooklyn better. The mayor and each council member up here has a vision for Brooklyn, and at the core of each of these visions is the same thing, a better Brooklyn for all of you. It is my personal feeling that council has had difficulty developing some great ideas because we have failed to realize that in order to be successful, we need to work together and prioritize our goals. I have sat down with the mayor and discussed some challenges that he faces working with council. His primary challenge is to accommodate the priorities of each council member when each council member appears to have different priorities. In speaking with each of my colleagues on council, I see we share many common goals. I will work hard this year with each member to develop a comprehensive strategy going into this year's budget process so some of our ideas can be realized. I know Mayor Belbeer wants to work with council, and I'm certain he values our ideas. We just need to give him something realistic, achievable, and compatible with his own vision. I'm looking forward to a year of fostering positive relationships, which I believe is necessary to move Brooklyn forward. On a sad note, longtime resident Mary Sarotak passed away December 18th. Mary and her husband Ed were residents of Brooklyn for 54 years. Mary held many leadership roles in Brooklyn, volunteering her time and helping others. She served as a member of president of the Brooklyn PTA, St. Thomas More Women's Guild, the Mayor Citizen Apprentice Program, Parma Hospital Advisory Board, and Brooklyn Safety Council representative. She was also responsible for helping organize Brooklyn's first library and began the Senior Health Counseling Service. So on behalf of council, we are thankful for Mary's work and pass along our condolences to her family. Council met for our organizational meeting January 6th. Council committees were divided this year as follows. Ron Van Kirk was elected council pro tem. The Finance Committee is Kathy Pucci, Tony DeMarco, and Ron Van Kirk. Mrs. Pucci will serve as the chair. Public Works is Kevin Tansky, Tony DeMarco, and the new council member appointed. Public Safety and Environmental Committee, Ron Van Kirk, Katie Gallagher, and Mary Belbeer. Mr. Van Kirk will serve as the chair. Recreation Board representative is Kevin Tansky. Planning Commission, Katie Gallagher. Economic Development, Kathy Pucci. Legislative Update, Mary Belbeer. Fair Housing Representative, Ron Van Kirk. Volunteer Fire Dependent Board, Kevin Tansky, and the new council person. And Domestic Violence Committee, myself. Council also reintroduced the school board liaison position. and this will be filled once council rules are formally amended. Council agreed we must work with the school officials this year, especially because of our upcoming construction. And I see Mrs. Cynthia Walker in the audience tonight. She's our superintendent. I know she's dedicated to the same goal of working together with the city. Council agendas will now reflect executive sessions when it's known prior to the council meetings, and the title of the minutes will reflect executive session for searching purposes for residents. 2 other changes were made to the council rules, and I will go over that in detail later. Council also met for a special meeting on Thursday, January 9th, and adjourned to executive session to interview 8 candidates to fill the council vacancy. There were many great candidates, and we're all thankful for so many people who were interested. Council will adjourn to executive session at the end of this meeting to hopefully finalize their choice to fill the vacancy. If council is able to come to a decision tonight, we will reconvene on the council floor, but no action will be taken until all the candidates are informed of the decision. We will now move on to the reports for committees, commissions, and boards. The first report is from the Finance Committee, Mrs. Pucci.
Thank you. Good evening. The Finance Committee met earlier this evening and recommended that we continue with second reading for ordinances 2013-76 and 77. These 2 ordinances repeal the 5% reduction in the highest cap of the range for the salaries for non-bargaining unit administrative employees. So I think there's a consensus that we want a little bit more information as far as how we compare to other communities that could be considered similar to Brooklyn, and also the possibility of waiting until the budget process to make a final decision. We had 2 other ordinances that we did not take action on, and those were the 2 ordinances on our agenda this evening that we had to discuss in executive session. And what I'm about to say is public record. So the ordinance relating to the bargaining unit contract with our dispatchers, which is ordinance 2014-1, the terms mirror the agreements that we've reached with our other bargaining units, and that is a 3.25 increase for 2013, so this would be a retroactive payment, 1.5% in 2014, and a reopener for 2015. There is also the requirement of a 10% employee contribution for health care, and the requirement that the health care committee process will have to address any future increases. Ordinance 2014-3 relates to our settlement with the landfill, and I will defer to Mr. Clausen. Maybe when it's time for his report, you could summarize that for us. We also approved a request from our police chief to purchase a used police car from Bob Gillingham Ford. This is a 213 model with only 5,900 miles on it. This is going to be quite a savings for the city because the cost is $24,950 versus $38,120 that we would pay for a new vehicle. And we will be paying for this out of our POPIS fund that we have. And finally, I would just like to thank my colleagues on the Finance Committee for electing me chair for 2014. And that completes my report.
With that being said, regarding the approval for the Ford Police Interceptor, we need to amend the agenda for tonight. So I need a motion to amend the agenda.
I move we amend the agenda to include the request from the police chief to purchase the used police car.
Second.
Excuse me. To amend the agenda, Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Katie Gallagher.
Yes.
Tony DeMarco.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Belbeer.
Yes.
Next, we have a report from Recreation Board Representative Kevin Tansky.
Thank you, Mrs. Gallagher. The next Recreation Board meeting will be held on Tuesday, January 21st, 2014 at 7 p.m. in the Mayor's Court. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. I have a Planning Commission report. Planning Commission met Thursday, January 9th. They approved a request from Super Sign Guys LLC to install an illuminated wall-mounted sign and panel on the existing freestanding sign located at 6700 Bidoff Road for identification of Gold's Gym. Approved a request from Elette Neon Sales and Services and Company to install an illuminated wall-mounted sign located at 7349 Northcliffe Avenue for identification of Ashley Furniture Home Store. Approved a request from Sign Light Services to install an illuminated wall-mounted sign located at 7313 Northcliffe Avenue for the identification of Great Clips. Denied a request from Alexander Jysko for a similar use to a permitted use approval for a relaxation massage business located at 7405 Memphis Avenue. Now we will move on to reports from council. Okay, I'm sorry, Mary Jo just reported. Kathy, you have an economic development report.
Yes, I do. At our previous council meeting, I reported that we had a tentative date for a meeting, which would have been this Wednesday, the 15th. That did not materialize, so we now have a firm date. The committee will be meeting this Friday, the 17th, at 2 p.m. That concludes my report.
Thank you, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Mr. Tansky, would you like to do your council report?
Yes. Good evening. I hope everyone had a nice holiday season. I would like to welcome our newest member to City Council, Mary Belbeer. I'm really looking forward to working with you. I also would like to congratulate Katie Gallagher as City Council President, and I'm also looking forward to working with you as well. Mayor, Idlewood update on this traffic again. It seems to be arising again. Can you let me know what's going on? Are we still looking at this stop sign? It was brought up again. I would imagine that traffic has not slowed down. Mr. Adamski came to the podium again. Can you let me know the update?
Yeah, but I heard it has slowed down, and they've given out quite a few tickets. And I think when I talked with the police chief last week, cannot put up a stop sign. The camera's still in question, but we're not allowed just to put up a stop sign like that.
So the traffic has slowed down, and it is working with us patrolling it?
That's what I heard. Maybe the chief can bring us up to date.
Yeah, we're still giving it special attention, but tickets have significantly reduced. So,
Mr. Verba, I noticed too on the sidewalk plowing, are we slowing down on the plowing on the sidewalks, or we just didn't have the manpower and the hours? Can you give us an update on that?
Yeah, as far as the sidewalks go, we did the main streets, and with school not being in session, we did not do the side streets because we had to do the senior driveways. So we focused our attention on that. Having less manpower, we had to make a decision there, and that's what we did. If school's in session, the side streets will be done.
Okay, thank you. That concludes my report.
Mr. DeMarco?
I would just like to wish everyone a happy new year and also welcome our newest member of council, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Van Kirk?
Thank you, Mrs. Gallagher. Good evening, and thank you for being part of our council meeting this evening. I'd like to start off by saying congratulations to my colleague, Katie Gallagher, on her appointment to council president. I'm looking forward to working with her, as well as the rest of council this year. I also want to welcome Mrs. Balbier as she joins our council this year. And I'd also like to thank my fellow councilmen and women for appointing me council pro tem. I'm honored by your trust and your confidence. Starting this January 6th, I've been appointed as the chairman of the Public Safety Committee. And throughout this year, I'd like to hold more meetings for residents to voice their concerns about safety issues they see in their neighborhoods. If you see something that is of concern to you, please feel free to call me and let me know. One issue that I'd like to see addressed, and that was actually in my report before Mr. Adamski came to the podium tonight, is the speeding down Idlewood. I'm glad to hear that the tickets have slowed down there. But I know we've had discussions about this in meetings in the past, but I'd like to work to find some sort of permanent solution. It's not over there. We can't obviously have a police officer sitting over there all day long, every day. So I'd like to work on something this year to make sure to see that happen. And the folks sitting on this council, we cannot see everything that goes on in the city. So if you have a concern about the safety in your neighborhood or on your street, please feel free to give me a call at 216-965-5737, or you can email me at my city email, which is rvankirk@brooklynohio.gov, to share your concerns with me. The more things that we know, obviously the more things we can address. I also want to thank the police department and the fire department for keeping our city safe this past week during the extreme cold. I also want to thank Mr. Verba and the service garage workers for keeping the roads as clear as possible despite the very extreme conditions. The roads in Brooklyn were in the best shape of any roads in cities that I drove in, which is normal, which I very much appreciate. When most of us were nice and warm, sitting at home, our safety forces and our service workers were still out helping people that were in need, and thank you very much for your continued great job. I appreciate it. As many of you are aware, there is a plan to merge the Parma Community Hospital and University Hospital. Not much has been said about this publicly, but it has been in the news off and on. I'm very concerned about this transition. I believe the word merge has been used because they can't outright sell the hospital. I have serious reservations about this project. I'd like to see a copy of the agreement the contract before some type of agreement is reached. Each resident of Brooklyn has a vested interest in the hospital, and I understand we live in a challenging healthcare market, but any change to the hospital status needs to benefit each city that has a stake in it, and Brooklyn very much has a stake in that hospital. Also, on a positive note, a recent Plain Dealer article came out, I think it was just a couple of days ago, and the medium house price rose in Brooklyn by 4% between 2012 and 13. We're certainly not where we were before the housing crash of 08, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Van Kirk. Mrs. Pucci?
Thank you. I, too, would like to congratulate Mrs. Gallagher and Mr. Van Kirk for being elected to their leadership positions. And I would also like to welcome Mrs. Balbier. I look forward to getting to know you better and working with you. I also would like to thank the police, fire, and service departments for all of their efforts. You know, we're all warm in our houses, and they're the people that are out on the streets keeping everything safe and plowing and salting our streets. And if I could just elaborate a little bit on Mr. Ardito's comment, what the service department struggles with is there are requirements where drivers of heavy equipment cannot work beyond a certain number of hours. So because we have less personnel and we have to adhere to that, that's what the struggle was in the last wave of snow that we had. So I think it was on that Friday, the service department had gotten the sidewalks plowed on all the main streets, but then, like Mr. Verba said, had, to stop to do the senior drives and then give everybody a rest before it started snowing again on Sunday, because then they had to get back out there. So I know how they were struggling, and I know they're doing the best they can. I would like to offer my condolences to the family of Mrs. Marcia Goulash, who passed away. They were longtime residents and very involved in our community. And also to the family of Mary Siratak. I knew her personally, and in addition to her deep commitment to our community and her involvement, she was one of the nicest, most pleasant people you would encounter. And she did have that nickname of Mary Sunshine, because no matter where you saw her, she always had a smile on her face, and she always took time to find out, how you were doing. So my condolences to both of those families. I would like to thank Mr. Fitzgerald for your annual report. I haven't read the whole thing yet, but I'll get it read this week. Thank you. We appreciate that, and we appreciate it getting in early. As Mrs. Gallagher stated last Thursday evening, we interviewed the applicants for the vacancy on council. It was a very long evening. We were here till about 11:30 at night. We wanted to make sure that we gave each applicant the necessary time to share with us their ideas and thoughts about the city. So I thank the applicants for having so much patience, because we had quite a number of people waiting a long time to come in and talk with us. I also would like to sincerely thank everyone who applied. It was wonderful speaking with you and hearing all of your ideas about our community. Regarding goals, I had previously proposed that council develop goals for 2014, so I am really looking forward to this process as we move forward with this. Finally, on January 1st, I was sworn into my 5th term on Brooklyn City Council, and it seems like the time has gone by pretty quickly, although if I think of it in relationship to my children's ages, my youngest was 2 years old when I first was sworn in, and he's now a senior in high school. So that puts it in a little bit different perspective for me. But I would like to first thank the mayor for swearing all of us in, and also thank the residents for the trust and confidence that they've placed in me. and know that I pledge to continue working hard to represent you and for the betterment of our community. And that completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought of one more thing. If I'm not mistaken, I believe the merger with University Hospital is finalized, and I believe it was effective January 1st. And Mr. Bundy's here, who represents us. Is it okay if he answers that question, or would you prefer not to do that?
Sure.
Okay. Because that was my understanding. Is that your understanding, Mayor?
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Bundy.
Sure. Madam President, council members, the University Hospital and Parma Hospital have signed the agreement, and it's still officially under scrutiny of federal and state laws. The State General is approving it. However, we're moving forward with this, and we're going to, the literature now calls Parma Hospital, University Hospital, Parma campus, and we're treating everything as, we're working as an agent for university hospitals. It's not a sale, but they're going to manage our hospital system. And there's going to be at Parma City, I believe at Parma City Hall, the CEO and a couple administration people from Parma are going to answer questions on the 23rd of January.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bundy.
Sure.
Thank you. Mrs. Belbeer?
Yes. First of all, I'd like to thank all the residents here in Brooklyn who voted for me and were so kind as to welcome me into their homes, sent me little notes and flowers even, and telephone calls. I so appreciated it, and I was totally overwhelmed. I'm really looking forward to working with the administration and with all the gentlemen and ladies on City Council here, and I can only tell the residents in Brooklyn that I will work my hardest. And I may not know everything in the beginning, but I'm willing to learn and to make this, to continue to make this city, Brooklyn, a wonderful city that it is. It's just fabulous. I'm so proud to say that I come from Brooklyn. I'd also like to say and thank our wonderful service department and Mr. Verba. I know right away when I work late nights, and sometimes I don't come home till 1 in the morning, and it's a big snowstorm and I'm all nerved up that I'm going to be driving home in this. And once I hit that Brooklyn line, I don't worry. I know it's going to be great. So I thank the service department and Mr. Verba, and that concludes my report for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Belbeer. Now we'll hear from Mayor Belbeer.
Thank you. I also want to congratulate Katie Gallagher on being elected president of council, and Ron Van Kirk for council pro tem, and Mary Balbier, our new member. I know all three of them will do an excellent job. I also would like to send our condolences to the Saratak family. Mrs. Saratak was very active in Brooklyn. She was the first director of our senior center. So our condolences to her. Also, we had another city worker pass away, Rebecca Nichols, and she was the night cashier at the rec center, and she passed away at a very young age, and we offer our condolences to her family. I also want to congratulate our service department. They were called out already on New Year's Eve. They were working 12-hour shifts. We have 7 snow plows, and at some point, 5 out of the 7 broke down. So they were fixed, but they were out of service for a while. And so, I mean, and in addition to that, everybody forgets these are the same men that are picking up our rubbish too. So they're doing a lot of work, and they're doing a very, very good job, and I commend them. Even our new ambulance had some problems. I don't know if the chief's going to talk about it or not, but our $400,000 ambulance had problems also. This is the time of year I start receiving the annual reports, and I got one from Mr. Fitzgerald from the building department, and it looked very, very good. The building department in 2013 gave out 706 permits. Commercial permits were 313. So that's 1,919 permits, building permits that were given out by the service department. The fees connected with that came to $320,174. And the value of the building from those 1,000 permits was $36,822,278. And to show you, the year before, in 2012, that figure was 11 million. So that's like 3.5 times in 1 year. So the economy's picking up in Brooklyn. And I also hired a full-time person to help Mr. Fitzgerald. I hired him last week, and he'll start in a couple weeks. And the mayor's court turned in their annual report. Up till August, they were behind 2012, but then they pulled ahead. And at the end of 2013, they were $111,322 ahead of 2012. And just before the council meeting started, I was informed there's a mistake on our city calendar. There was no number listed for the animal warden. So it seems every year there's a problem. There's at least one mistake on the calendar. So if anybody has to contact the animal warden to notify the police department, they'll give you the number. And with Parma Hospital, they're going to give each city a $50,000 wellness grant. And we have to discuss how we're going to use that. And I have a meeting with UH and the Parma officials at the end of the month. And the UH officials came to meet me a couple months ago already, and our city law director's been in contact with the other law directors to try to get us the best deal before this was closed. And just like Mr. Bundy said, the deal is closed, but we'll see how we're going to spend this $50,000 wellness grant.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Do we have a copy of that contract?
I don't know if the law director does.
We don't have a copy of it?
I don't believe so.
How would we go about getting that?
I'll have Scott look into it for you.
Thank you.
And that completes my report.
Thank you. We'll now hear from our directors, and we'll start off with Recreation Manager Maria McGinty.
Every time we test that mic, it works perfectly until we come to tonight.
Good evening. As the mayor said, we lost employee this past week. Since August 12, 1997, Becky Nicholas has graced our facility as a cashier. She was a wonderful woman and a mother to Lee and Carrie, who both worked for us. She always had a smile on her face and was a conscientious worker. I loved working with her on many a nights. She was not only a hard worker, but she truly was a friend. She will be greatly missed at the Recreation Department, and I would like to send our condolences to the family. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Now hear from our Finance Director, Enovich.
President Gallagher, members of council, as expected, 2013 did finish strong for the city. For the entire year, our general fund revenues were right on budget at $17,771,573. Also for the year, our general revenue fund expenses were slightly below budget at $15,517,898.23. That means that our unencumbered general fund balance at year end was $8,378,294. That's approximately $2 million more than what we started the year with. When you include the two sub-funds, that is the Budget Stabilization Fund, which is our rainy day fund, and our Economic Development Fund, which funds our continued economic development programs, the total unencumbered general fund balance for the year is, the ending year of 2013, is $10,555,594. Now, council's ordinance requires a general fund balance of 16% of the annual revenues at year end, and we exceeded that guideline. At year end, the city general fund balance was 47% of annual revenues. That concludes my report. Any questions, be glad to answer.
Thank you. Fire Chief Joe Zemek.
Thank you, President Gallagher.
Just to clarify what the mayor asked me to report on, the new ambulance, about 3 to 4 weeks after it was in service, developed a noise in the rear end. It was taken to Valley Freightliner and evaluated. And due to the holidays, with the lack of mechanics, it was put back in service. It's a noisy rear end. I was on the phone this afternoon with Detroit Freightliner. They are shipping the parts that are needed. It is under warranty. It will be replaced. They expect the parts to take anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks, and when they get them, they'll let me know, and it'll take about 2 to 3 days to take care of the vehicle. So on that note, it was never broken down, is what I'm trying to say.
We have a backup ambulance.
Sure, yeah. Your 2009 is still your backup ambulance, right? The other reason that I asked to give a report tonight was on Christmas Eve morning, we had a residential fire on Torrance Avenue. It was a very hot, very well-established fire when the 6 people arrived on the scene. We had to split engines, so that left 2, 1 on each pumper to run the pumps, and so that left 3 people to attempt to control the fire. So I want to commend those men that responded to that fire, those firefighters. It took them 10 to 15 minutes, and they had the major volume of fire out. Due to the extreme heat throughout the house, this home was ready to flash over any second, and due to their strategies and tactics, they prevented that flashover, which could have injured the firefighters and actually burned the house down. But we were able to control the major body of fire. It destroyed the back porch, the garage, the auto in the garage, and most of the kitchen. But again, due to the extreme heat and the smoke throughout the house, this house contents was a total loss. The state fire marshal and a team of fire investigators and myself spent 5 hours sifting through to try and get a cause. And actually, there's a couple things that could have been, so we have to go with the undetermined according to state fire marshal. But having said all this, I want to really thank the men that work together in our service department, the folks that work in the police department, and our police dispatcher that was on duty that morning. He did a wonderful job of multitasking. There was numerous calls placed by me to notify certain agencies. The service department was called very early on because naturally when you're spraying water on a very cold morning, you get ice. And the service department responded and salted not only the roadways but the stairways and the driveways and stuff, so we didn't have any slip and falls of firefighters. The police department was just fantastic out there with the road closures, helping us drag about a 4-inch hose line that we had a long lay to supply water to the engine, and just overall making sure everything was secured around that house. So it was like a whole team effort that came together this morning. And since I've become the chief, I'm seeing more and more of this cohesiveness on what we're doing out there on the street with all the departments. And it's a phenomenal sight to see. So, and I also want to thank the mutual aid agencies that came out. We utilized Parma and Parma Heights that morning also. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Chief. We'll now hear from Law Director Scott Clausen. And Scott, could you please give an explanation of the landfill, a brief?
Good evening, everybody. There is 2 ordinances on the agenda tonight that I am going to request that council pass by emergency. The first one is ordinance 2014-1. This is the collective bargaining agreement for the dispatchers unit. Very similar to all of the other negotiated contracts that have come before council. This does have it's a 3-year contract. In With regard to the first year, there is a 3.25 increase in pay. The second year, there's a 1.5 increase in pay. And the third year, there is a reopener to discuss future wages in 2015. With regard to the health care, the members will be paying 6.9 in 2013, 10% in 2014, and we will reopen in 2015 to discuss future payments in 2015. The reason I'm asking that this be passed by emergency is due to the fact that revised code section 4117 that basically deals with negotiations, indicates that as soon as the union ratifies, the city has so many days to basically vote for ratification of the agreement. And if the city council does not vote on it, then it would pass automatically. So I'm asking that council vote on this tonight. There's also ordinance 2014-3. This is an agreement with the Ohio EPA with regard to closure of the landfill. We have had years of discussion going on with the Ohio EPA about the closure of the landfill. What this agreement does is it sets forth basically timelines and gives us a roadmap with regard to closing the landfill. And it's not ultra specific with regard to how the closure is going to be, but this is the first, I guess, step one with regard to closing it. Our outside counsel was present today, and he asked that this be passed by emergency today as well.
Could you please elaborate on the monetary, the fine, and what we think it's going to cost?
We believe the notice that the agreement that we are going to enter into with the Ohio EPA kind of just shows guidelines, roadmap. In this agreement, it's not etched in stone, but it looks that we are going to pay a $29,000 penalty to the EPA for going outside the waste limits at the landfill. That was a lot more. It was negotiated down. I think it started off at around $130,000, the fine, and they got it down to $30,000. It's not etched in stone, like I said. This may change, but this kind of gives us the parameters, and the Ohio EPA the parameters to work with to close the landfill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clausen. We'll now hear from our Service Director, John Verba.
Thank you, Mrs. Gallagher. I would just like to thank the Service Department for their hard work during the past 2 weeks. I can personally tell you that is a thankless job, as I can count on my hand the number of thank yous that they received. In a 2-week period from December 30th to January 10th, the men worked 651 hours of overtime. To give residents an idea of exactly what happens during a storm of this magnitude, the salt trucks traveled a total of 3,580 miles and dispersed over 700 tons of salt. On January 3rd, we had 3 different trucks below hydraulic lines. 1 truck had a broken spreader, 1 plow even fell off, and we had another truck that overheated. Between the hours of 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., 5 out of our 7 salt trucks were broken down. When all said and done, we will have spent over $6,000 on repairs to these trucks. The men worked around the clock, and we were still able to keep the rubbish schedule on time and do the senior driveways twice in a 3-day period. Once again, a special thanks to our unsung service garage workers. And in response to that we salt the side streets too much, during a storm of this magnitude, we salt as much as needed. If it is a light snowfall, we may only do by the stop signs and the intersections. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Verba. Council received a letter from the mayor. I would like to request council confirmation on the appointment of Ms. Kay Hutke to the Brooklyn Civil Service Commission. She is filling the unexpired term of Mr. Dan Enovich. I believe Ms. Hutke will serve the city and the commission well in this capacity. Ms. Hutke's term will end January 24th, 2015.
Move to confirm Mrs. Kay Hutke to the Brooklyn Civil Service Commission.
Second.
Mrs. Gallagher, may I be recognized?
Yes.
Thank you. I just want to say that I support this appointment 100%, and I have full confidence in Mrs. Hutke, but I do want to go on record that I continue to object to the selection and appointments being done in secret. I think we owe it to our residents to make it known when we have these vacancies, because the way we're doing it now, residents are not even aware, therefore they do not have the opportunity to submit their names for consideration. Thank you.
To confirm the appointment, Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Katie Gallagher.
Yes.
Tony DeMarco.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Bellbeer.
Yes.
Next, we have a request from Chief Melky to purchase a 2013 Ford Police Interceptor. Need a motion to authorize the purchase.
So moved.
Second.
To authorize the purchase, Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Katie Gallagher.
Yes.
Tony DeMarco.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Bellbeer.
Yes.
Next, we have ordinance 2013-76, repealing Section 1 of Ordinance 2012-6, relating to the compensation for full-time and administrative employees non-bargaining, as Mrs. Pucci had already explained, and this will be on second reading. Ordinance 2013-77, repealing Section 1 of Ordinance 2012-22, relating to the compensation for a part-time position for Economic Development Director. And Mrs. Pucci had already reported this on in Finance. This is on second reading. Next, we have Ordinance 2014-1, authorizing the mayor of the City of Brooklyn to enter into a contract with the Northern Ohio Patrolman Benevolence Association Dispatchers Unit.
Introduced by, oh, sorry.
Good.
Introduced by all, suspend the rules.
Second.
To suspend the rules, Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Katie Gallagher.
Yes.
Tony DeMarco.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Bellbeer.
Yes.
To adopt, Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Katie Gallagher.
Yes.
Tony DeMarco.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Bellbeer.
Yes.
Can you recognize for just 1 second?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Clausen, for giving us an update. You referred to a time frame that has to be adhered to in this, and I believe you said it was 7 to 14 days, correct?
It's one or the other.
But somewhere in that time frame, which doesn't allow us to have the 3 readings, is why I wanted to do that.
If you had the 3 readings, it would pass.
It would surpass the time frame. Thank you.
Next, we have Ordinance 2014-2, amending Ordinance 2004-32, as amended by Ordinance 2007-1, 2010-1, 2011-5, 2012-2, and 2013-2, entitling an ordinance to establish and adopt rules of Brooklyn City Council. As I stated earlier, there are a few changes to the council rules. The first change is to the organizational meeting. It currently reads the first Monday in January, and council added the language "or soon as practical thereafter." This matches the language in the charter. Additionally, like I said before, we are adding the school board liaison position back, and we are amending Rule 32 in executive session to add a new exception to consider certain confidential information related to economic development initiatives as permitted and regulated by Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. And this will be on first reading.
May I be recognized?
Yes.
I just noticed that we're going to need to change the year on the ordinance title from 13 to 14.
Next, we have Ordinance 2014-3, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Ohio EPA relating to the sanitary landfill. Need a motion to suspend the rules?
May I be recognized?
Yes.
I just have a comment. As many of you know, this has been an ongoing issue for the city for several years. It's extremely important. It could have a potential significant impact on us financially. We were able to secure the services of outside legal counsel a few years back. This gentleman and his firm are an expert in this field. And because of his expertise, we've been able to he's been able to wind this thing through the process for the city. And I think the ordinance that we're hoping to pass this evening is a testament to his hard work, and the residents, and certainly myself included, owe this gentleman a debt of gratitude. Yes, we did pay him for his services, but I can tell you that the hours that we were billed for versus what he put in on this, and the conclusion that we've come to at this point, is very beneficial for the city of Brooklyn. And my point to all this rambling is there are good uses of outside counsel when appropriate, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. DeMarco.
Introduced by all, suspend the rules.
Second.
To suspend the rules, Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Katie Gallagher.
Yes.
Tony DeMarco.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Bellbeer.
Yes.
To adopt, Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Katie Gallagher.
Yes.
Tony DeMarco.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Bellbeer.
Yes.
Okay, as stated earlier, council will adjourn to executive session to hopefully finalize the choice to fill the council vacancy. Again, council, if they're able to come to a decision tonight, they will reconvene on the council floor, but no action will be taken until all the candidates are informed of the decision. We need a motion to adjourn for matters relating to personnel.
I will make that
Executive
motion.
session.
I move we adjourn into executive session for the purposes of discussing personnel relating to the vacancy on council.
Second.
To adjourn to executive session, Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Katie Gallagher.
Yes.
Tony DeMarco.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Bellbeer.
Yes.